everything in your body is wanting to get you healthy. That's the goal of every system and organ, cell, mitochondria, whatever it is. It's wanting to get you healthy. And you have to believe that. You have to understand that.
Nacky, how did you find Carnivore?
Well, I thought you'd ask me that. uh, so actually, it's kind of a long story, and I have different issues that I wanted to cover, kind of going through the continuum of my life. I wanted to start by saying I'm 77 years old. I am definitely extremely thankful to be on the carnivore diet or lifestyle, and I'm not a doctor person, so I'm not going to give you, how much my blood. I don't do the blood work and all that stuff. I just and I stopped doing that years and years ago because I could tell it was like useless, to go to the doctor and get a drug. So one thing I wanted to say, I was born in 1946. So I'm a baby boomer. My class in school was real big, compared to the one before. And then, of course, once I hit high school and stuff, I was a hippie, that was the time. It was the 60s, So what I wanted to say about my childhood was my dad, we had a nice little place, with a few dogs and horses in the woods. And it was very nice. It was in Princeton, New Jersey. And my dad was a well-respected physician in New Jersey. And all of a sudden, I remember it. He came home and he said, we're going to do everything different. He got rid of the butter, got rid of the real milk, which the milkman used to bring with the cream on top. He got rid of that. We got to do skim milk. We got to do Mazola margarine. We got to have Mazola cooking oil. It was no eggs and not even sugar, which was odd because he had these artificial sweeteners, the early ones, the stuff called sucralose that you had to put this disgusting tasting liquid on your cereal. It was off. And I didn't like it, but I didn't know anything about it. Why was he doing that? Turns out that Ansel Keys was one of his heroes. And he had his medical practice and he kind of was really interested in heart disease. And so he had this little research lab. And what he did in the research lab, he got an NIH grant and he gave rabbits totally inappropriate food for a rabbit. And he proved that a high-fat diet causes heart disease or filling up or hardening of the arteries, something in the arteries. And of course, I was kind of young. I didn't know what he was talking about much, but we all thought Daddy's doing something important, in that research lab. And later, once I really got studying health and stuff, I have heard the most, disparaging comments about these rabbit studies, and how awful they were. And I was like, boy, Daddy missed it, So, and I hate, I shudder to think about all of the people that were his patients that he advised the same way that he wanted us to eat, and just he missed it. He was a very smart man, but he missed it. He just did. And so, of course, later he had a stroke and he had, a big ulcer and different things happened to him and stuff. But, nobody was trying to figure out why did that happen, because we just all thought things happened. We didn't associate a cause, So anyway, that's kind of a background thing. And I wanted to say something about my teeth because I can even remember when I had cavities in my baby teeth. And I read in an anthropology book at one time that if it's a large family, the younger ones won't get as many minerals from the mother as the older ones. Well, I was the youngest of 5. My oldest sisters, all my siblings still have their teeth, and mine just rotted out of my head. Of course, it was due to my own discretion, bad choices of what I was eating. But I also feel like I did get a bad start. I really got a bad start. So then, that's one thing that I really, I dealt with thinking about these problems with my teeth all the time. I was always going to the dentist, and I thought what you do about your teeth is you keep up with, when you get a cavity, you get it filled. But pretty soon there was nothing more to fill. They just started deteriorating till I had, snaggletooth in the front and not much to chew with. And my sister, I've never had money, you know. I've always been, you know, I mean, I don't care, you know. It's like the hippie thing. I mean, I'll be all right, you know. You know, I'm not worried about it, you know, because but the others all had money, so my sister helped me get a set of dentures, which I still have. But anyway, uh, what I wanted to say about specifically about my teeth and the carnivore diet was I could tell when a tooth was going. You know, I pretty much had an idea of when it's going to be gone. You know, and I only have a few left in the front that are actually mine, and they look awful. They're just about black looking, but they do hold my partial that's on the bottom in place. And when I got on the carnivore diet, they were already the two outside ones were already going pretty bad, and I thought they're not going to last much longer. And you know what? After I changed the carnivore diet, they haven't gotten any worse. They're still terrible, but they've not gotten any worse. And when I was in high school, just for an example about my teeth, I had braces all through high school. Everybody in my family had braces. We didn't ever think about why do we need braces? You know, this is not natural for humans, you know, but we didn't think about that. We just all went to the orthodontist. At that time, they put a band around every tooth. And when they took them off, every tooth was rotten underneath. Not my sisters and my brothers. They had still got, you know, teeth that were straighter and okay. But mine were already, you know, I was just, so I started at a deficit. And I'm not saying I'm innocent, because I definitely, when I got away from home, I became a sugar junkie as quick as I could. You know, that's just what I did. I remember being, you know, a sugar freak in college. I remember, you know, it was just a bad thing with me that I was just hooked on it. You know, I was a junkie with sugar. I knew it. But I didn't really think it was that important, you know, to worry about. But it was still there, you know, in the back of my mind or somewhere buried, you know. So anyway, I wanted to say about that about my teeth. And then let's see. Oh yeah, okay. So let's go to my gut issues. When I was first married, we lived out in the country, and my husband liked to hunt. So that was cool. I learned how to butcher, you know, animals and deer and stuff, and how to cook all this oddball, you know, baby groundhogs and you name it, you know. So I learned how to do all that, which was good. But at the same time, I had learned how to garden. And I was growing all these vegetables, and I thought that was the ticket. You know, I didn't have anything against the meat, but I really thought, you know, this is a good thing. You know, I'm finally, you know, instead of being the doctor's daughter that really just didn't know what to do with a garden, because mom hated gardening. I remember that, you know, mom didn't want any parts of it. So, of course, I didn't learn it at home, but I did finally learn it. And I got pretty good at it and had beautiful gardens and all that. But by the time, let's see, I was trying to think how old I was. Well, it was in the late 70s anyway, we'll say. I had started to find blood in my stool. And that scared me, because at that time, it was like, if you find blood in your stool, you know, you're going to have cancer. It was a big scare thing, you know, I guess trying to get people to spend money on procedures, you know, or whatever. So I went to the doctor, and they gave me this barium x-ray thing where they could look at my gut, and they didn't see anything. And then they did this awful thing where they stuck something up my butt to look up there, and it was terrible, uncomfortable, awful thing. And they said, well, you just have a little ulcerative colitis. That's not a big deal. You take this stool softener. That was the only advice I got. And it didn't seem to make much difference. I didn't know why I was taking it really. But anyway, so fast forward like years later, I had moved to Kentucky and remarried, and I had a Jersey milk cow, because I'd been reading up on health. Now I was getting to think I knew what I was talking about. I had read Adele Davis back when I was still in Pennsylvania, and I thought that was, you know, such important. And I don't know, I just thought I knew stuff, you know, but I really didn't. And so my problems with my gut got worse. But I thought that I was back to the milk cow, which I milked her, and she lived till 18 years old, and she was wonderful, and she had great milk and butter. And I thought the problem was with store milk and pasteurized milk. It wasn't what I was getting and bringing in the house and consuming. But way back in Pennsylvania, after I'd seen that doctor, I went to one of these health guys, whatever he was. And he said, you need to get off of dairy products because of my gut problem. And I just thought, that guy's a kook, you know. And so I went ahead and got my cow and milked her. And, you know, 20 years later, I was really getting in trouble with this bleeding thing. I didn't have all this pain like some people have terrible pain with gut issues, you know, but thankfully I didn't have that, but I had blood. Oh my word. I thought, I'm just hemorrhaging, you know, this is really bad. This is serious, you know, and I was picturing like, what will happen? You know, what will happen? How bad can you continue? How long can you continue like that? You know, and you know, there was people with, you know, you get a bag out your side, and I was horrified thinking that was my future. You know, I really thought, and I was like, oh man. So at one point, I had a little store in my house. I sell quilts in here. And this lady came bouncing in, and she told me about the Hallelujah diet. And she said, you need to go on the Hallelujah diet, honey. You don't look like you feel too good. And I was a lot overweight, like 40 pounds overweight. And I had like, I'm sure I looked anemic. I had to have looked anemic and no energy, you know. And she said, honey, you go on the Hallelujah diet. And she was way older than me, just bouncing around. And so I got their literature. She gave me one, and I sent for their, and I started reading it. And I was thinking, well, this makes sense, you know, and other people got well from gut issues on this diet, you know. And I showed it to my husband, and he's like, well, you know, if you want to try it, that's up to you. So it's stupid thing is, we had raised a beef cow. We had all kinds of livestock. I mean, everything you can think of. But at this one point, we had a steer that we had been raising to butcher for our own freezer. And don't you know, I went on the Hallelujah diet, which was a vegan diet. And I never had a bite of that beef. He ate the whole thing, he and my daughter, you know. And I thought, when I look back on it, I was like, that was the stupidest move. I'd have just known about carnivore then. Just think what a difference I would have made, but I didn't know. So the Hallelujah diet, to give them credit where credit is due, they do tell you to get off of processed food. You're supposed to eat whole food. They like the raw stuff a lot. And they got you off of dairy and sugar and things that I needed to get off of. And as soon as I got off of that dairy, my bleeding stopped. I was like, wow, this is what's been screwing me up all these years, you know? Because, you know, that was like I was 50 approximately when all that happened, that I went on the Hallelujah diet, and all this bleeding stopped. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. And the people at the Hallelujah diet, so they did not push low fat, which I'm very thankful for, thinking about it now. They had this product that they encouraged us to get, which was called Udo's oil. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it was a blend of different oils. And they're all the ones you've heard of, you know, flax oil and sunflower oil and rice bran oil, but they were unrefined. You got it in a dark glass bottle, and he said it was not exposed to light or temperature, which is what causes the rancidity that they have to do all this processing to prevent in the oils, you know, in the regular industry. And so he had this product called Udo's oil. And I thought, well, so I did that. I did Udo's oil. I mean, I did it for like 25 years. And he said, you know, you need a fat component in your meals, so you'll get your fat soluble vitamins. And that made sense to me too. So I did that. I put that, and it was tasty. Everything tastes better with a fat component, you know, even whatever it is, you know, that really helps. So I put a tablespoon of that Udo's oil on every meal. No problem. You couldn't cook with it, but you could put it on hot food or cold food or what salad. You could make anything with it, you know, but you couldn't cook with it because you couldn't get it hot. So anyway, it was pretty good stuff. And I sold a lot of it to other people. You know, I kind of got to be dealing in it, you know, and that was cool. And everybody seemed to like it and enjoy it. And I didn't see anything wrong with it. I still wonder now, you know, I've not heard anybody actually, you know, of these we'll say carnivore influencers talk about something like a product like that was so that wasn't refined. It was just the press, I don't know what they'd say, but anyway, I survived on it, and I'm thankful that I at least had that. And they said, coconut oil was all right, of course, but I didn't do that much at the time. I mostly just did the Udo's oil. And then my husband, so I got involved a little bit in reading about Weston A. Price, who had traveled the world and found all these indigenous cultures that were healthy, and that was so cool. And he talked about their teeth, which led me to understand what happened to why I had all these tooth problems, as far as my jaw being too crowded, and all my sisters and my brother had the same problem. And that was enlightening. We got thinking about so we read some of Sally Fallon's information on recipes. It's called Nourishing Traditions. And she explains a lot of stuff in there that I learned from her. I was very glad I learned it. And she was a big proponent of lard. Well, here in Kentucky, my husband that I got when I was down here, he was a local guy, and the local tradition was you raise a hog, you butcher it right after Thanksgiving, and you render all the lard. So that's what we did. And then we had lard, and he liked to cook. He didn't think I knew how, because I was from New Jersey. We didn't use lard, and we didn't know how to cook at all. We didn't know how to fry anything, because we were low fat, we thought we knew it. So he was really good at cooking with lard. So he taught me how you fry stuff, and you don't just put enough oil in the pan so that something won't stick. No, you put plenty of lard in there so you can fry something in it. It was delicious. And after I went on the Hallelujah diet, he still made stuff with lard that I partook of, because he was really good at making fried potatoes. That was his specialty, fried potatoes, and then any kind of meat he could do, and he raised rabbits. He always had hundreds of rabbits, and he fried rabbit. I think my daughter was raised on fried rabbit, and potatoes. So, and she survived, whatever. And anyway, so when he would butcher rabbits, this is one other good thing that I did that wasn't strictly Hallelujah diet, but I did it, and I'm thankful that I did, was when he would butcher rabbits for people, like he would butcher them, and, he'd cut them up, and we'd put them all in a Ziploc bag, and there the person would get their rabbit. But I always wanted the livers. So I ate a lot of livers. I ate a lot of rabbit livers, and they were delicious. They weren't like that funny taste that a chicken liver has. They were just mild and delicious. And I would eat a whole skillet full of them, let him fry me up a skillet full of them, or I could actually do that myself. And so I'm really thankful I did that, because I'm sure it's one thing that got me through. Because all of the years I was on the Hallelujah diet, give or take, however, strictly I did it, everybody always said that I was healthy, that I looked healthy, that I had energy. I did farm work, just all kinds of stuff. We had untold how many different kinds of animals, and I was always right out there doing it, and building hog pens and all that. And so I did pretty good considering what I was doing. But in the meantime, my teeth were going backwards, which should have been a sign. And actually, I'm going to think about it. When I was, so when I was 45, I had a baby. First time and last time. And after that, I remember going to the dentist, and he was like, Nacky. He'd been my dentist for a long time. Made a lot of money on me, I guess. My mess. And he said, look at this x-ray of your jaw. He said, you are look at the comparison, what have you done? I said, I don't know, had a baby, maybe drank too much coffee or whatever. I don't know. And he said, you're losing bone, so I knew it from that time, which was, probably before I was 50, before I went on the Hallelujah diet. I already knew, that he had showed me that I was losing bone mass. So, and all he said was take calcium, not really much help. Okay, so the Hallelujah diet, you weren't allowed to use any refined grains. You weren't allowed any white flour. So I had this Amish lady, which I live in an area, it's got a lot of Amish and Mennonite and stuff. It wasn't hard to find somebody that was really good at baking bread. And I had her making bread that was pretty much whole wheat bread, I don't even know if she put any white flour in it, but I was eating that bread to beat 60, you know, and plus on the Hallelujah diet, you were supposed to get your exercise, you know. So, of course, I did farm work, but I took up a little bit of bicycle riding at the same time. And after eating all that wheat and everything, I started to get asthma. And I had it a few times, few episodes, like when I was in college, and I did go to a doctor, and their diagnosis was that it was psychological, that maybe I'm having trouble with my boyfriend or something, you know. Ooh. Anyway, so that was something that I had so it came back in force, you know, when I was first on the Hallelujah diet, and I had they have a health minister training program. So after I lost all that weight, everybody was like, "How did you do that? Tell me, I want to do that," you know. So I thought, well, if I need to teach this, I'm gonna have to learn how to do it right. So I went for their training, and we had these marvelous speakers there, some of whom you may have heard of, like T. Colin Campbell. You know, he's a big vegan advocate at Cornell University. And Joel Furman, he's famous for his vegan diet. And we had I can't think of the guy's name, but he wrote some books about America. I don't know how it was. Anyway, he was a big vegan famous guy too. So I heard some really interesting speakers, and I bought it hook, line, and sinker, you know. But anyway, so what happened was I had already gone through health minister's training when the asthma hit me really hard. That's what I was trying to get at. And I remember one night in the middle of the night, I was like, Bobby, I'm going to die. I can't breathe. I think I have pneumonia. I think I have pneumonia. I didn't know what to think. I just couldn't breathe. And he got the neighbor lady to come and get me and take me to the hospital. And when I got to the hospital, they gave me a breathing treatment. I was like, okay, I'm ready to go home. They was like, no, you're not. You're not ready to go home, because as soon as that wears off, you will be right back. And so my blood oxygen was really low, and I stayed from Friday till Tuesday. And when I went home, they sent me with this big pile of drugs and prescriptions and stuff about, and this guy that was the lung guy, he tried to scare me that if I didn't do what he said, I was going to end up just right back in the hospital again. You know, I had to take my albuterol and all this stuff that he sent me home with, which horrified me because, you know, like I said, I was already a health minister and I should know what I was doing, but I didn't. But I had heard a tape, a little cassette tape of some guy. His name was somebody Baker, and he told that people can get food allergy tests done. And it was a very non-invasive thing. They drew your blood and sent it off to this lab that did the ELISA method of food allergy testing. And so I went to this guy that was a doctor at the time in a town near us that everybody knew he was kind of natural oriented. He was real nice. And he sent my blood off for me. And when that blood test came back, that was my answer, because it was like a graph, you know, and on the left side, all the things were listed, and then it had a graph. How far out it went showed how bad it was. Every single kind of thing you can imagine under the dairy category was all the way over at the worst. So that of course I had already quit dairy, but that was very revealing. I'm allergic to the proteins in the milk and all the dairy products. It's still in there, you know, the casein and stuff. So then in the middle of the graph, like half bad, was the gluten thing. And that was why I was having all that asthma. And as soon as I quit the gluten grains, it didn't take long. I mean, and this doctor was so great. He transferred me over from some of those toxic drugs that they had advised to less toxic ones that weren't going to ruin my body, and just to how to taper off of them. And within a month or two, I was off all the medications, and I had no more asthma, and I never have. And that's why. So I was so glad to find that out. So anyway, then, and probably, you know, looking back at it, I'm sure that didn't help my gut issues either, because, you know, if you're sensitive to gluten and it gives you asthma, well, everybody knows, you know, you get that celiac or whatever in your gut, you know, from gluten grains too. So I'm sure that helped make it worse. But anyway, Um, and maybe, because I got off of that stuff, my gut could heal, more thoroughly or whatever. So anyway, in the meantime, um, so I did do pretty well with the Hallelujah diet. I really did, and I taught it to everybody. And at first I was pretty gung ho, and I would juice carrots and all that stuff. They were really big into juicing. But then they came out with their products, so you could buy powdered carrot juice, and they had a barley max. It was a green product, and it was really good. I could swear by it. I said, if I don't eat my barley max, I get joint pain. I mean, it really seemed to be helpful as could be, and I wasn't, trying to put anything over on anybody. I really believed in everything that they taught. And then what happened was I went on that way for quite a while. As a health minister, I wanted to bring this out because it was a Christian ministry. The Hallelujah Acres Diet was a Christian ministry. And I was raised an atheist in New Jersey. We didn't know anything about anything, not the Bible, nothing, And all of a sudden, here I was with all these Christians at these health minister things, and they were all, they knew the Bible backwards and forwards. They had a relationship with the Lord and all, and I didn't. And that's one reason why I started really, really reading the Bible, was because I had that asthma, and I thought, why did everybody else get well and I didn't? Maybe it's a spiritual thing, because I don't understand all this spiritual stuff. It was like there was like a big emptiness in me. I had never been encouraged to understand anything of a spiritual nature and the love of God. I had never learned any of that. And finally, when I actually got understood enough and had read enough of the Bible, I was like, I want this. This is something I need. I want the love of Christ in my heart. I want it. It changed me completely. And I had been, really, all over the place, we'll just say, from the 60s on. And I had a lot to be forgiven for and a lot to repent of. And it was like, it just happened, boom, and there I was. And I was a health minister, and I was a Christian, and I got a whole new, circle of friends and books to read. And it was wonderful. So, and it just filled that hole in my heart that never had anything in it, So that was wonderful. And that was, I said, the Lord knows how to get people. If he wants you to get it, he's got his eye on you, and he says, you're going to be useful to me someday. You're going to get it, and you're going to know I love you, and you're going to help other people. That was the thing, because a health minister, you're not just in it for yourself. You're in it because you want to help other people, So that was an important thing that everything happened at the same time. I became a mom. I got saved. I changed my diet. Like, woo, Okay, so I was the green smoothie queen. I mean, I taught people how to make green smoothies. I did little classes. People invited me to come teach them at their church, and I was like I said, the green smoothie queen. Well, the only thing that saved me from being completely ruined by those green smoothies was the fact that I was into plants, wild plants. And we had hogs and we had guinea pigs. And if the hogs and the guinea pigs ate something and did fine on it, I did too. So, and I'd try to find them in a book and see what they were and whether they were considered edible or not. But a lot of times I'd been eating them for a long time before I ever found them. So I used a lot of wild weeds and garden weeds and wild wild stuff that grew around here. And I didn't just use spinach, which is really one of the worst, as far as what it does to you. But anyway, I think that helped me survive was that I was eating all that wild stuff. And even though some of it I've found out now is really like high in oxalate or whatever, but at the time it was enough variety that maybe some of them were just fine, or low oxalate, whatever. And anyway, so that was, and another thing about that part of my life was you really had to take a lot of supplements. It's just like Dr. Chafee and them say, if it's not a diet you can do just with the food, why would you think it's optimal? If you have to take, it's an elitist thing. You got to spend a lot of money on supplements, you know? So why is that? There was something fishy about that, but I didn't really think about it until I heard them talking about it. And I thought, they're right. You know, that's crazy. But I did sell a lot of supplements. I mean, a lot of them. And I still have people that buy them, even though I've explained to them what I know now. You can't just explain to somebody that's been doing it for 25 years, just explain to them one time about why there's another choice besides this vegan diet with all these supplements. They don't get it right away. And you don't, sometimes they never do, you know? During that time, I read a lot of books, and I started using YouTube and finding out what was going on. And uh, when I was 75, which was a couple of years ago, I broke my leg. And when I broke my leg, I found out from the orthopedic surgeon. I asked him when he's looking at my x-rays, do I have osteoporosis? And he said, yes. And I said, how bad? And he said, bad enough. I said, well, give me a DEXA scan order, and I want to put a number on that, because you can't do that by just knowing. And so I got the DEXA scan, which I'm glad I did. And that was like, my accident was in July, and in September of 2022, I got the DEXA scan. So, and sure enough, it showed bad osteoporosis. And I really, I think this is such an important thing that a lot of people overlook and don't realize that they're headed for it, you know? And so I was thankful that that revealed to me, you know, how bad things had gotten since the dentist told me I was losing bone. And then I thought I had it licked, because when you're on a vegan diet, you've got all those minerals coming in from those vegetables. And I thought I thought I had it licked. I honestly did until that was. So anyway, then, at that time, Sally K. Norton had started to pop up on YouTube, and her book wasn't published yet, but she was there, and she was so articulate, and she explained everything that was wrong with everything that I was living on. And at the time of breaking my leg, until I started listening to her, I had the worst flare up of my gut issues and bleeding that I had ever had. It was frightening. I'm sure if I had went to a doctor, they would have told me I had Crohn's or some really, really bad gut thing, you know. But I didn't go, because I know it's going to get well. Somehow I'll figure this out, you know. So I did. It was caused mainly at that time by just this enormous amount of stress when I broke my leg, because everything changed. It was awful. But anyway, I got through it. And when I found Sally K. Norton and her recommendations about what not to eat because they were high in oxalate, I was like, okay, I'm getting rid of all these high oxalate foods. And at that time, I had sort of slid back into a bad habit, which was dark chocolate. And I just thought, well, dark chocolate is good for you, you know. Well, not in the proportions and the quantities that I was eating it. It was, I'm sure, not good for you. And she had dark chocolate as one of the high oxalate foods too. So I quit that right then. That was in the fall of 2022. I quit that dark chocolate. I quit all those green things that I stopped making smoothies. I just changed completely, getting more and more. And another thing, I was trying to figure out this puzzle of why did I get osteoporosis. So the first thing I figured out was I wasn't getting enough protein. So I started right away eating meat. I had been eating sardines and stuff along, but I was having trouble keeping up with, and so I just started eating meat. First, I started eating meat once a day I'd eat meat. Then I started eating meat at every meal. And then so this went all through 2023. I was getting to be more and more meat and less vegetables, because I believed that Sally K. Norton knew what she was talking about. And I believed that that was what was leading to my osteoporosis, because she explains very thoroughly that you can eat spinach, but it is a chelator, and it's going to combine with the calcium in your body and take all of it, grab it. It likes to grab it and combine with calcium and other minerals. And it's going to do so much damage grabbing all your minerals that your body is still going to have to take minerals out of your bones to balance your pH in your blood. And I was like, oh my gosh, that just was that infuriated me. And not that the people that I, followed their advice knew that. I don't think they did. But still, it was true. I was sure she was right. She hit it right. So I went ahead and by 2024, January 1st this year, I had been listening to the different carnivore influencers, and I thought, well, by that time I was pretty much down to just meat and white rice. I had already I couldn't find any vegetables that I thought I should eat, and I had a really bad flare, like I said, right when after I broke my leg, and that had cleared up, and I was doing pretty good. And I hadn't really put in enough fat. I'm sure I hadn't quite hurdled that yet, but I did start using some lard, and I got rid of the Udos oil because I thought, well, I'm going to go animal, and then I tried to join Dr. Chafee's challenge because it was supposed to be World Carnivore Month, and I thought that would be so cool to start, and do that. But there was a mix up with the bank in Australia, and so I missed the, you have to get in before the first of the month, or on the first or something. But I said, okay, well, I'm going to do it anyway, the first, and then even though I'm not in the group. So I did, and then I thought, well, I'm going to experiment a little bit. If I'm not eating all these plants, can I use dairy? Well, that didn't work because I immediately got a sinus infection thing going on. And then I thought, well, I'm going to try the eggs, because on my food allergy test, there was a slight allergy to eggs, not near as bad as the gluten and not near as bad as the dairy. But I thought, well, maybe I can eat eggs. But same thing happened. I got a sinus thing going on from the eggs. So I was like, okay. So by February 1st, when I joined Dr. Chafee's group, because I wanted to be able to ask him questions, I thought that was a really valuable reason to go in his group. And I did. I stayed in his group for 2 months, February and March of this year, and it was just miraculous. Even when I started on on January 1st by myself, it was just miraculous because like I said, I had been a chocoholic and sugar junkie and all that, and I mean, I was pretty good on the Hallelujah diet, but I had my weaknesses, and they came in, and I had to push them back. So at this time, there was no cravings. There was no feeling that I got to get something to eat. I could eat breakfast and I wasn't hungry all day. It didn't matter. It just didn't matter. It was amazing. Totally amazing. And in the meantime, my pastor was so cool. He got behind me, and his daughter got behind me, and his wife. And I was able to make a few presentations at church even earlier. Like I taught, about nitric oxide and the dangers of seed oil, processed seed oils, and things like that. And they were all there. So I was so thankful that they gave me the honor of being the health minister at church. It's, and I still am, but I haven't given any presentations on the carnivore diet because I really kind of felt like I ought to give it a year till I really said stuff about it, because, you can't just do something for a few weeks and say, oh, I'm going to teach this, you got to know it. You got to do it, And so I thought, well, I'm just going to lead by example, and anybody wants to know something, they can always come and ask me. And I just went on that same principle that I had for years, which is I'll just help whoever God sends me, and that's what I've been doing. And I'm very, very happy with the carnivore diet. And I was going to say, okay, so Dr. Chafee said, I told him that I had gotten that DEXA scan, and it had been a year and a half by then. And he said, you go get another one. You need more data points. Let's see how it's going, And it was so cool. Just a year and a half of eating a lot more meat and cutting out the vegetables and getting to the point that I was actually carnivore. My DEXA scan, which this is about the only figure I have for you, but my DEXA scan was a minus 2.8 the first time, which is considered pretty bad osteoporosis. By the second time, a year and a half later, it was only minus 1.8. So it went from minus 2.8 to minus 1.8, which Dr. Chafee said, good job, you're heading the right way, you know? And of course, they tell you that you can't rebuild your bones. They tell you that, but that's not true. And I'm so glad it's not. But anyway, so that was my big thing on the osteoporosis, that and I'm gonna just go like until next year sometime and get it checked again and make sure I'm still, you know, gaining bone. And so then the other thing, it was just peace about not having those blood sugar you know, cravings. I mean, that was all you could say. And then when I started on the carnivore diet, I didn't think I had any visceral fat. I knew I was a little bit overweight, not terrible, but you know, it wouldn't hurt for me to lose 20, 25 pounds or something, you know. And, you know, at first I didn't lose any weight, but my stomach shrank. And I was like, whoa, what happened? You know, I can get into these, you know, other genes that I couldn't get into. And what happened? My visceral fat disappeared first. I still had the subcutaneous fat and I didn't lose any weight, but I just, it took out the worst first, you know, which was so cool. I thought that was really, really neat. And of course I had listened to, you know, Sean O'Mara and You're Supposed to Sprint. And I was following, I want to give a plug to the ATG, Ben Patrick and the Athletic Truth Group, because he's really a specialist in knee problems. So here I was with a knee problem from my accident, and I just did what he said. And he said, you know, they asked you what your goals are. You know, I said, my goals are, I want to be able to hike around in the woods and I want to be able to dance at church. And I can, you know, so, and I really, and I'm really thankful for all the, you know, different exercises that I learned from him, and I still do them all the time, you know. And to beat it all, they had a giveaway, and I won through no fault of my own. I won a backwards treadmill. So you know, they recommend backwards walking, which wasn't very convenient around here, and I got that backwards treadmill. So I always just start my exercises off with that, and it makes you feel great, and it makes you feel like doing the rest of them, and it's you know, it's really, really healthy for your knees, and you can turn it around and kind of sprint on it too if you want to. So anyway, that was an awesome thing, and those people are just so wonderful. They have a heart to help people and tell them what they know, tell them what they know to help them. I mean, they're just wonderful. So anyway, that's Ben Patrick and the ATG, you know, system. So that was great. And then I learned about sunshine, you know, that of course I had been outside a lot, you know, just with the farm, but I started, you know, concentrating more on that and making sure that I, you know, would get outside early so that I got that early morning sun, and I would take a sun bath if I had time in the sun, you know, later in the day, and then you know, I wanted to say something about my eyes. This is really cool. So after 2 months in Dr. Chafee's group, I went in Lisa Wiedemann's group, and she's the carnivore eye doctor, and she helps people that have addiction problems, which I obviously had earlier, but I was really interested in being in her group. And so she had told in one of her other videos, not the group video, but she told about improvement in eye problems on the carnivore diet. I hadn't been to the eye doctor for a couple of years when I got these glasses, and I could tell that my distance vision, I cannot see like I should be able to, like reading a street sign or something, you know. So I thought, well, I'm gonna go get another pair of glasses. Well, do you know what? The reason that I couldn't see very well in the distance part of my glasses, because they're trifocals, is because my eyes had gotten so much better. They had improved so much. In other words, from a 3.5, they reduced my prescription down to a 2.75. And I attribute that to the carnivore diet. I think that's great. And I didn't get them yet. I'm waiting for them to call and say they're here. I can't wait to use them because, you know, anyway, that's a really, and you know, you don't know what's going to happen, what's going to improve that you aren't even looking for improvement in, you know. And as far as weight loss, I I didn't really think about it that much. Like I wasn't in it for weight loss, but I did from January 1st till now. I lost 9 pounds, which was probably about, I didn't need to lose it any faster than that, have any worse of a problem. So um, that was really cool. And then I really worked on making sure I had plenty of fat, and I listened to Elizabeth Bright, and I had been taking iodine all along on the Hallelujah diet. They recommend iodine, but I really hadn't been taking, I don't think, as much as I should. So I started taking it more, and I was like thankful to learn that would help your hormones, that and the high fat diet. And I'm sure that see, I had used to take natural progesterone, a skin transdermal cream. I had taken that for a long time, but I decided, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm not going to have to use that. So I stopped using it quite a while ago, and I haven't really missed it because I think it's because I upped my iodine and I increased the fat. So my body can do what it needs to do because, even though I'm 77, it doesn't mean that I need a supplement, because if my adrenal glands are healthy, they'll produce as much progesterone as I need. And progesterone, of course, is one of the, it's like a mother hormone that some of the others are made from. So that was a good decision, I think, and got me out of one of the supplements that I had been taking for a long time. And so I know you're going to say, what do you eat in a day? What's your diet like now? So the weird thing was, as far as my farm here, after my husband passed away, my nephew, he runs cattle on my farm. So he gives me meat from the cows, he gives me hamburger. And since I, have these false teeth, I can't chew steaks very well, unfortunately. So I don't care. I love hamburgers, cooked in lard. And so that's one thing. I make sure I eat a ruminant meat every day, but not only ruminant meat. So I'll eat like bacon or sausage. My nephew and them made sausage out of the hog that he butchered, and they rendered lard, and I got the lard from that. So I had sausage, and then I actually bought bacon. So when I make my hamburgers out of from his beef, then I'll always cook either some sausage or some bacon in the same skillet, and it just gives it more variety of flavor. But I eat it really, really rare, that beef, and sometimes I can get bison. There's a little salvage store down here that has been having, I don't know how long it'll last, but they've been having like a pound of bison, ground bison, for $4.97 a pound. So I just stocked up on that too, so it can kind of alternate between what he gives me, and then it's still ruminant, and I can have ruminant meat daily. I have ruminant meat. And so not only do I cook in my cast iron skillet and all that lard, I also have my crock pot. And this guy that used to trade with my husband when he had all those rabbits, he still butchers rabbits. So I buy rabbits from him. And rabbit, I guess it's very lean. You can starve on rabbit. Domestic rabbit isn't quite as lean as the rabbit starvation rabbit, but it's still too lean. So I got those pork rind crumbles that are just like breading, and I just roll the rabbit pieces in that and lay them all in the bottom of my crock pot, and it comes out fantastic. And they're salted a little bit, but that's all. I don't get the seasoned ones. And that's a really, and then as far as my farm is concerned, I was certified organic for 5 years. After my husband passed away and I got rid of the hogs, I thought, well, what am I supposed to do? And I said, well, I guess I'm supposed to garden, because when the hogs leave very rich ground behind. So I went ahead and got certified organic, and I did that for 5 years. And then I had quit a few years ago because it was just more hassle than it was worth. But I thought, well, okay, so I was gardening. I was still gardening, and I grew, like watermelons and okra and all this stuff. So this year I was like, what am I going to do? I don't really want, what am I going to grow that I can eat? I'm a carnivore. I don't want to do that, So I got a few sheep, and I have 3 sheep, and I'm not going to go and be a big sheep breeder, but I think I'm going to get sheep along all the time to be able to butcher. So they're ready to, they have an appointment on September 25th. And meantime, I have sheep now, which I thought, just seemed like a sensible thing to do. So we'll see how that works out. And then let's see, what else did I want to say? Oh, once in a while I'll go to the store and I'll buy one of those rotisserie chickens that's organic. You ever see them? They're just really delicious, And I share them with my dogs. I eat the dark meat and the skin, and they eat the breast meat because I don't even like it. I never did like it, and it's too dry and it's not fatty enough, and they think it's fine. So we share it. Then I did buy some ghee because I couldn't do the butter because it still had the proteins in it that I was allergic to, but I can do the ghee. But I don't use it that much. I use it more like just a little pick me up or a bedtime snack, just a half a teaspoon or something. Just eat it and let it melt in your mouth, and then it takes me forever to go through a jar of that. I mean, that's just something else that I have. And then I did try the beef trimmings where you fry them up like cracklings, and they're good. And I could use them more if I, made sure I told the people ahead of time, that I want them and they save them for me and all that. But I don't go to town that often, so it's kind of a hassle,
And so you're eating twice a day now?
Yeah, I eat breakfast and anywhere from 8 to 9:30. I'll eat breakfast, and then I'll eat again maybe 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, and then I'm full from. So yeah, I eat 2 meals. Yeah, I do, and yeah. Then I know you're going to ask me about what would I recommend for people that want to start carnivore, right?
Yes, you're like a psychic. You know everything.
No, it's like I've binge watched your.
No, I'm joking.
You know.
Yeah.
What would I tell somebody that is starting? Okay. Well, see, the thing is, some people, it depends where they're starting from, of course, what they're, whether they're doing the standard American diet or whether they're vegans or what they are to start with. But the thing is, the way that some people will say, okay, I've got to do this carnivore thing. And when they change, they have so many issues because they've changed so radically, And I didn't know I was headed for a carnivore diet, but actually I did it just pretty well, because I cut out things and I added meat and I cut out, more and more vegetables. And I had been using like low, let's see, non-gluten grains. Like I hadn't done much of it for a while, but I used to use a lot of buckwheat and millet and stuff like that. But once you start studying what Sally K. Norton says about the oxalates, they're high on oxalate, and I didn't want any part of them, And that the best one was white rice. So I kind of got it down to that, but then I didn't even use that. So I transitioned slowly, and it was like I didn't have any. The only thing I can say I had was, I mean, I didn't have like keto flu and feel awful, and it was just easy. But I did have a problem with the oxalate dumping, which was my kidneys. I would wake up in the morning and my kidneys would hurt so bad. But once I made it into the bathroom, because some of the time it was so bad, I just had to hobble in there like I had a broken back or something. You feel it right in your back, And then once I had urinated several times and maybe drank some more water and it got kind of flushed all out, it was fine. It didn't hurt the rest of the day. So it wasn't a back problem. It was a kidney problem, And I've always had a small bladder, so I guess the Sally K. Norton, I asked her about it, and she said, well, it probably is oxalate dumping because during the night is when your body is cleaning out all the things that it needs to work on cleaning out in your body, and that includes whatever oxalates it can get rid of. And so, you just experience that. To me, it was like, and I asked Dr. Chafee about it, and he didn't think I was crazy, but he didn't say he'd ever heard of anything like it either, but because I have a small bladder, my kidneys couldn't push out of the kidneys all that they could get out of the blood, or the lymph it was all gathering up to go through the kidneys. And so in the morning I would wake up with a cramp in my feet, and I'd go, uh-oh, time to get up. And I'd get up, and as soon as I would get, I mean, within 20 minutes of getting up, it was all gone. You know, every day for a long time, it was pretty bad. I called it my kidney misery. But now I don't have that anymore. I mean, I can tell. So maybe once in a while I feel a little bit, and I when I felt it just a little bit, I thought that's something I've had for years. When I was still doing all those smoothies and was on the vegan diet and eating all those oxalates, I recognized it when it was real mild. I recognized that's what it was, the same kind of feeling in my kidneys. But when I actually, you know, got off of everything and my body started dumping it, it got radical. But it didn't. It's just, I don't know. Maybe it'll come back. I don't know what it'll do. But it's not a problem right now like it was. You know. So that was something else I wanted to mention. You know. But okay. So if somebody's going on it, what I would do is see. They have to learn. You know, and the Bible says you are transformed by the renewing of your mind. If you don't really learn it, you're just going to think it's crazy, and you're not going to understand why don't you need fiber. How could that be? You know, that's just ridiculous. We have to have our fiber. You have to learn about the fat thing, that yes, you do need fat. It's something you got to really help people to understand. And once they understand it, they can start cutting down on the carbs and the, you know, the grains and the legumes and, you know, all the plant kingdom. And they can start eating more and more meat till they're there. You know, it's not rocket science at that point. It's just they have. And the other thing I want to say is if they decide to do it and they realize this is God's design, He didn't design us to be sick and have problems with our teeth and our guts and all the rest of it. He designed us to be in health, in wonderful, good health. And all of our body systems, because of His wonderful design, I see, there's another point I want to get in there. Everything in your body is wanting to get you healthy. That's the goal of every system and organ, you know, cell, mitochondria, whatever it is, it's wanting to get you healthy. And you have to believe that. You have to understand that. And to me, when I listen to these influencers that are always having to talk about millions of years, to me, you can look around and see there's people doing ethnography right now, you know, anthropologists like Mary Ruddick. She traveled all over the world. She's a wonderful ethnographer. She just, people love her wherever she goes. She goes into all the places that Western culture hasn't penetrated, and they're all healthy. So to me, that's God's design for us to all be really healthy. And it doesn't have to be millions of years ago. If you don't want to believe that, it doesn't matter to me whether you believe it or not. There's people, and even when the white people came here to America, the American Indians, everybody knows the Indians were healthy. You know, they were strong and they could fight and they could run and they could hunt and they could do everything in good health. They didn't have trouble. You know, Mary Ruddick interviewed a lot of women in her travels and to different people groups all over the world. And she would ask them about problems that we have in our Western civilizations, about childbirth, about menstrual problems, about cramps, about, you know, children dying. And they were like, they didn't know what she was talking about. You know, so you don't need to go back to 3 million years to believe that people are designed to be healthy. That's what I'm saying. You know, and that's a relief to me, because I do have a degree in anthropology. That's what I studied, but it was cultural anthropology, not physical anthropology. But still, I know that there are people all over the world that have populated every kind of ecosystem there is, and God always provides a way. And Mary Ruddick, my authority on this matter, says, yeah, and they all have a meat-based diet.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, we just have to look at the animal kingdom, right?
Yeah.
No, the animals are not. They just eat what they're meant to eat, and they don't get they don't get sick.
Right.
And it's only us that have messed things up, right?
And you know, and so the agriculture thing, you know, people don't think about that. They are shocked when you explain to them about how people like, you can use the Bible as an example real easy, because there's Abraham. He came with his camels and stuff, and then he had cattle, and then he all of his people were nomads. They weren't doing farming, but they had agriculture by that time, and there was sick people all over. When Jesus came, there was people sick all over the place, and they had already had agriculture for quite a while in that part of the world. And the Egyptians, they've proved that the mummies, because Egyptians into those mummies, there's a lot of stuff to study down there, and they were very sickly, and they were living on grain. And when Joseph's whole bunch came down to Egypt to get away from the famine, the Egyptians despised herders, but so they gave them the best land for herding animals, and they were healthy, eating all that milk and meat and stuff. And the Egyptians were all sickly on the grain. So I mean, it makes sense. It all makes sense.
Yeah. So, Nacky, do you have a way of reaching out to you? Do you have any social media or anything if
Not
people want to
really.
get in
I have
contact?
an email. If somebody wants to talk to me, I'll talk to them on email. You have my email, NackyEats@iCloud.com. That's all. But I'm not looking for, a big following or anything. I just wanted to present what happened to me in case it would be helpful to somebody else. That's all I'm in it for, we're not supposed to just take knowledge and understanding and health information and just hoard it up. We're supposed to spread it out. That's what God wants us to do, is to help other people, if it will. That's the whole thing, because it's his plan, and he has some people that understand it, and he wants them to help others with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate your time, Nacky.
Well, thank you.